thank you for coming today. So for those that don't know me, I'm Nila Matthews, author of Conscious Creativity and Flow, and founder of Awakening Flow. I do have a very analytical background though. For the last sort of 20 years, I've worked very much in Sky and Yahoo, and building technology, but really on the back of the sort of behavioural science and psychology, even though it was still very much technical orientated. But today it's got nothing to do with that at all. You'll be glad to know, or maybe you're not. So today I really wanted to be talking about flow, intuitive flow. But before I do that, I just also want to thank you for taking the time to jump on and spending some time with me. Hopefully, and I will honour the time as much as I can, we'll be wrapped up just over the hour, 8:45, because I want to make sure we've got enough time for questions. But, you know, the fact that you're here, I just want to honour that, because it just means that you know that there's something more within you that you want to tap into. And so that's really what I want to talk to everyone today about, and also my own medicine, reminding myself of this, that, you know, we get these blocks within us that actually stops us from knowing our higher self and our innate power of intuition. I'm going to talk more to that, but what I really want to be talking about today, as you may have seen on some of the adverts, is the concept of as within, so without, as above, so below. And that's rooted in quite ancient wisdom. And I'm going to be talking about the Hermetic laws. And what it really amounts to, if we tuck away intuition and we tuck away anything else, it's about how do we see ourselves? And what's the relationship we have with ourselves? Do we have self-esteem? Do we trust ourselves? And that's really the crux of where we're going today, is really looking at that. And it can get a little bit uncomfortable doing that sort of self-inventory, looking at what it is that we want and where do we want to, and how do we want to get there. So hopefully some of you have got the map that I've sent out in the email, and that really is what I wanted to talk us through today, and fill that in almost like a map of ourselves. So as we go through this, reflecting, making some notes, and the first question we kind of ask is, we are here, and where are we going? Where are we going could look like, you know, a project, but ultimately, wherever we're trying to go, we're taking ourselves there. So whether that's us trying to open to our intuition, or get to the end of a project, finish that book, you know, get our website up and launched, or have a big project, what we're really inviting in is ease and flow. I mean, some of this might not be, if you don't want to, you know, kind of put your hand up, but hopefully as we go through this, we shall be looking at the as within, so without, and really kind of avoiding what I always remember have you heard of the Greek legend of Sisyphus, as he's pushing that big thing up the hill? Why? Why are you suffering? You know, can we let go of some of that suffering and add that ease and grace? So we're going to have a look at some of the things that are making us continually push when we don't need to. What are the things we can do to really get more flow into it? Now, I've just got some questions in front of me, so I'm just kind of scrolling to make sure I don't miss some of those. So just excuse me if I do that. I also talk too fast, so please slow me down or ask me a question if something's not making sense, or you'd like some more validation or understanding around the topic. What I really want to be talking about, though, is that this training is really about helping us flow when things are going wrong, flowing against the odds. Because, you know, when we're all in a good place, things do flow a lot more. And what I'm really trying to help us do today is, when we look at ourselves when we're in a not so fragile, uncomfortable place, we can strengthen. And so when we get ourselves into situations which feel hard, challenging, where it does feel like we're pushing that rock up the hill, that's when we really need guidance. that's when we really need to flow. And yet they're the hardest times to do it. So this isn't a one and done, as one of my teachers used to say. This is a start of an unpacking and really strengthening ourselves. And for me, what I found was I did a load of training from neuroscience perspective. I left my job in the corporate world to go and do a master's in psychology. I went very much down the psychology route. And then it wasn't until I really opened up to my, what we're going to call intuitive intelligence, and I'll break that down for us in a moment, that I was really able to rely less on my, 3D five senses, which aren't very good, and open up to a higher knowing, a higher power, kind of my soul wisdom, which, and I'm sure, who here hasn't had some nudges and intuitive nudges, which, put your hand up if you want, which you sometimes listen to, maybe sometimes you didn't, at your detriment. And this is really about what is it within us that stopped us trusting that and listening to that. So that's really where we're going today. And this is part of a wider session. Now, this is the second one I've run. The first one was focused on, the 4 types of intuition and how they work. And it's all part of a sort of bigger soul awakening intuitive intelligence course, which is, again, asking us very simply to change our relationship with ourselves and open up to the fact that we are actually unlimited and we have full potential. But what are we doing to open up to that? So it's a journey to declutter all the things that have held us back. So what I really want to do now is kind of take us into a little bit of a grounding before we start. And then we'll take us into what is the agenda. And the agenda really today is we're unpacking the term as above, so below, as within, so without. And so we'll be covering some laws from the Hermetic world, Egyptian Hermetic laws, which are 2 things: law of correspondence, and then we're going to touch on another law, which is called the law of mentalism. It's not that as complicated as you think, but I'll come back to that. We'll then look at fear and our shadows, in fact, as well, and how we can rethink those fears and shadows, because they're the things that are really blocking us. And we'll look at that map that we've got all the way through, and we'll break that down to actually see how that's playing out in our world, whether we're conscious of it or not. And then we'll do a practice at the end. So let me just, before we go into the little grounding, is just explain what I mean by intuitive intelligence, because I've now trained as an intuitive intelligence trainer and recently did an 18-month spiritual directorship course, which is not as woo as it sounds. It's more business and very led with the science of intuition. But what that really meant was we were just healing. We were healing all the wounds that were holding us back from seeing us as we are. And intuitive intelligence is really, and I'm going to use, Sonia wrote this up beautifully the other day, but she said that intuitive intelligence is that fusion of emotional intelligence, which you may have heard of, analytical, and for me, it's also creative and it's somatic. So what we mean by somatic is we're putting our whole nervous system at ease to allow us to drop into our intuition. And that's really what a lot of what we do is how do we find ease in our body as well? And then we have the intuitive intelligence. So it's an amalgam of all of them, but really to help us feel healed and whole. So without further ado, I'm going to just lead us into just a grounding exercise, just a little practice, just to let ourselves land. Unless there's any questions. No, if there isn't, just make yourself comfortable, take a wriggle. It's always good just to have a little shake. And just feeling the chair beneath you. And take a deep cleansing breath in. Let it out audibly through the mouth. And just let yourself land. Thanking yourself for being here. And I'm just going to invite you now just to tap just at the side of your hand. Sorry if you've got your hand closed. Tapping on the soft part just under your pinky finger. And as we tap, just say these words out loud or in a whisper, signifying to our nervous system that we can release. Release. We are safe. Now say out loud, I now release all my stress and suffering as I access my highest vibration, my highest form of intelligence. I allow myself flow to my highest self and connect with the infinite universe. Stop tapping, take a deep breath in, and let it out. Drop your shoulders, letting go, letting go, letting go. Just landing in this ever-present now, knowing you are so safe. Dropping your tongue to the bottom of your mouth. Just letting go of all the stress and the tension and anything that stops you being in this ever-present now. But just take your mind to the center of your chest, the portal of your soul, your heart center. And just notice where your energy now is. Is it scattered? Or is it allowing that heart light to glow brightly, beautifully? With your next breath in, let yourself ground and go within the space of your heart center. You know how powerful you are. Let your breath anchor you into this moment and feel the space within the space of your heart and your body. As you melt inwards now, feel the universe within the whole of your heart center. No effort required. The beauty, the magnificence, as you breathe for the whole world, the whole universe. Your power, the spiraling cosmos. Your light expanding. So as we take this moment, maybe just saying thank you and appreciation to something, someone that fills you with joy. And I just want to thank you for bringing me to this point today where I may share this wisdom with you. As we all open to our infinite and highest intuitive intelligence, as we drop our small waves, take a deep breath in, knowing how powerful you are, and let yourself flow back into this ever-present moment. And when you're ready, just opening up your beautiful eyes. So hopefully I haven't put you to sleep. Okay, so just taking on some water. So again, let me just remind us where we're going today. We are exploring. I have got a slide, but I'm not going to bother to use the slide and presentation sheet, and then I'll be kind of taking it on and off. I'll show you that again in a moment. So 3 key things that I really want us to focus on today. And that is that concept as we break down what we mean by as within, so without, which is the law of correspondence. And then as above, so below. And we'll touch upon another law at that point. And we'll look at some fear, and then we'll go into a practice to really shift a lot of that energy. And if we have time, we could do some a sort of fear reading, channeling at the end, if we have some time there, just to see if we've got any other fear that needs to go. But before we dive in, on that map that I gave you, there's the north. There's a where we are now, and then we've got a north. And the question really is, what is the destination for you? Is it a thing that you want to achieve? Is it an intuition that you'd like to strengthen? Is it your soul's purpose or dharma? I don't know if anyone wants to share before we get going, just to give me an idea of, but we don't need to. Again, everything is an invitation. So if you don't want to share, that's all good. So please put yourself at ease. That's fine. So again, just going back to that image, if we take that image as the sort of metaphor, if we look at that vessel or that ship that we've got, imagine that is us. And we're trying to get to wherever we want to. And there are 3 things that we need to get over to that X. And what that also means is we're trying to get over to that X by flowing and also have a good communication channel. So if you think about any ship, it needs to know where it's going and have a good GPS system. Okay, let me just share the image here. Just bear with me. Can you see my screen? Just nod if you can. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so here's the agenda, just so you know. So we're going to be unpacking those laws and that concept. Where we are right now is the idea that this whole vessel here is really us. And that's what we want to do. We want to get over to wherever we are, whether that's X is your intuition, or whether it's fulfilling a project, or whether it's getting to your soul's purpose. 2 things that we really need here is that sense of ease as we go across the water. And if we think of the water and how it can get really turmoil and really throw things up, we can think of those as our emotions. The vessel here is really us. How strong are we as we go across the water? And that's really what we're looking at, is what are the things that are going to, well, there's 3 things that are going to block our flow and our communication, our sort of GPS, our guidance, and that would be our intuition. And that intuition, when we know it works really well, it can come in 4 ways. And that's what we spoke about last time. But so just sort of a recap, we have 4 clairs. So we can instantly know, which is claircognizant. We can be clairvoyant, which is the usual way we talk about clairs. We can see things, or we can hear things, or we can really feel them. And we don't always know why, but that's clairsentient. And what we're really saying here is we've got this channel coming in. And that channel that comes in is kind of that communication. And so when that communication comes in, it can be really clear, or you kind of get it and you don't know, or, you're unsure. But it's going to be represented with 3 things. And those 3 things are, firstly, well, when I say represented, it can come in and be diluted by 3 different things. And the first one of those things is the concept of what's below in your subconscious. Because what's in that subconscious could be lots of things that you haven't paid heed to for such a long time that it's causing that energetic drag. It might just be old beliefs that you haven't got before. So I always talk about FAB, so feelings, actions, and beliefs. So for example, if you wanted to write a book, but you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're feeling that you just got some feedback back and you're not worthy, or, you know, oh, I got it wrong again. And then your belief is, I'm not good enough, because maybe you were younger and maybe you got D's, or, you know, and you're bringing yourself back to that. And then what happens is the behavior is you'll procrastinate, you fall into that distraction plank. That fear, and that's what it is stopping you from reaching X. But what that actually means is the belief that you have is that I am not good enough. These subconscious fears are actually all the things that are stopping you then from going forward. There's another thing that's going on here as well then. Because you have got these fears, your energy then ripples out, and actually you're feeling like down, you're concretized, you're not expanded, so you're not flowing anymore. And if we had a flag or that sail on top of that ship, you know, it comes down to as within, so without. So, you know, if I gave you a 3D example, if we're not feeling great, what's the first thing we do? We kind of eat badly, we're feeling sluggish. And so if that sail was a visualization of your self-esteem, because that's really what your energy is now reflecting, what would that flag look like? What would that sail look like? Would it be standing tall, or would it be kind of half-mast? So right now, if you just took a moment to reflect on a project that you potentially got, where are you? You know, is it full mast? Is it bright? What does that look like? So if you had to put a color down, is it a bright color? Is it a dull color? So just make a note of that, because what we're hoping for is by the time we've got some proper work and some self-reflection, we want to change that to a really bright flag. The other thing that's going on is we've talked about what's below the ores, the fab, and that's really about how quickly can we get there. Are they synced up to help you get to X? Because if they're not synced up, it also means we're blocking that communication with our intuition, because all three of those ores need to be working in synchronization, and they need to be working as a fab. They need to be working with clear trust and not with that heavy concretized energy of, oh, I'm not sure. I'm just going to stop sharing just for a moment. Oops, sharing. Just so I can see you. So that fab is really important to the narrative that we actually have within ourselves. So in that 3D world, you know, where we might want to write a book, but we've got all these things going on that are stopping us, that's one part of it. But when we go slightly further and we look at what the Egyptian Hermetic laws actually meant by that law, it actually takes it to a whole different level. Now, that Hermetic law, I just stopped sharing. That was a really, really bad time to stop sharing, because I want to show you the next slide. So let me just go back. Here we go. There. Right. Oh. I shared it. There we are. Okay. So the Hermetic laws are an Egyptian Hermetic laws, and there's a great book called The Kybalion, or the Three Initiates, which was written in the 1920s. It reflects a lot of other spiritual texts, but it really founds itself on three foundational immutable laws. And a lot of people have heard of the law of attraction. And that's kind of fad, kind of, it kind of works for a reason, but it's based on the law of vibration, which I'm not going to talk about, but ultimately that is the energy signature that is sending out. And everything has, and we are energy, so everything has a signature, and that energy signature will either attract or repel. The two laws that I want to talk about, and the one I'm really focusing on today, is the law of correspondence. So when we're looking at intuition, all we're really saying is that we're communicating, and we're communicating with a higher source. So intuition is a knowing beyond knowing. So it's not our gut intuition, it's not biological. We talk about a non-local intuition, which can come in when we invite it in because we're connected with a higher form, which could be our higher self, or it could be a higher power, or we could say God. And I know some people don't like using the word God, but I'm going to use them interchangeably today. And the law of correspondence is that communication. So it's that mast. It's all of the signals that are being sent out by our the ship. So as the oars are rowing, what's the energy of those communications? Is it all synced up to wholeness, or is it synced up to unworthiness? And what you're going to see in a moment is that makes a really big difference. Because if we're communicating that we're stuck in fear and we are not whole and we are not worthy, what we're actually saying is that, if we look at the law of vibration, is what we're communicating out to the rest of the world and the unified field. So why that's important is we're going to look at the law of mentalism, and I'll come to this, but this is also stating that all is one and all is of the mind. Let's not get stuck there because it's a slightly lofty term, but let me just break down what the law of correspondence actually means, because what it's actually saying is that life is a reflection of what is within, and so it's without. What that means is, if we pack it all in, is that if our life is a reflection of what is within us, if we're stating that we're not worthy, or we don't feel good enough, or we are stuck in fear, that means that that's what's going to reflect outwards. Let me just give you a little example of that. In a personal sort of case, at the start of the year, I've had a bit of a hard year, and I kept saying I'm really tired, I'm really burnt out, and I kept using those words and were really quite heavy. What ended up happening, which is really silly when I think about it now, and it was really obvious, even given my knowledge, was I kept saying I'm really burnt out. So then what happened is I was on a retreat in Costa Rica. I was getting lots of feedback. There was a lot going on. I was cooking, wasn't conscious, was running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And then I got burnt. Like literally, it's on that hand. I don't know if you can see all of that. So all down my arm, I got completely burnt. And you know, the irony is, when I told another one of my sisters, she went, "Oh, well, you did say you were burnt out." And it felt like a cosmic joke. It felt like, oh, yeah, okay. So I kept saying the words I was burnt out. And guess what? I got burnt out. Because the interesting thing is, the universe is just listening to you, and then it's corresponding. And that's what it means. Oh, you're burnt out. Oh, okay. Here's you being burnt out then. And that's what it means. And it can also work in our favor, because actually right now I'm supported and have the most beautiful women around me who are the most supportive. And actually I feel really blessed about that. And when I think about it, you know, I've also been saying constantly, I feel so blessed. I feel so supportive. And brilliant. And so there's a part of me that knows I have to take responsibility of that. Now, we do want to make the distinction, though, between everything that's happening in our outside world, because we know at the moment that Gaza-Israeli conflict is happening. And really, you know, sometimes chaos and conflict just happen, and we don't know why. You know, there is just, you know, the world has gone mad, to use Jung's terminology. The collective unconsciousness has gone mad. And in other cases, sometimes chaos comes and everything gets thrown up. And in those sort of cases, if I look back in hindsight to where that's happened, the seeds of chaos have thrown everything up, and then they've landed and something beautiful happened. I just couldn't see it at the time. What I'm talking about in this case is the patterns that keep occurring, the same rubbish patterns. You know, it's a different situation, but there's an echo of the past. It's that same, but different. And that's really where the only common denominator in all of this is us. And so that's what I'm talking about with taking responsibility, because that's what we need to understand, is this law of correspondence corresponding to what's deep within us. What is within that bottom of the ship, what is within your subconscious. And maybe you don't even know what that is. And that's a lot of the work I do with my clients is, we seem to think that we understand what's in our subconscious, but when we go to the deepest levels and we've accumulated all the past conditioning and the things that people have told us, they're all kind of little stacks that we forget that are there, but they're all sat very much in our subconscious, adding to the fear. Now, these are heavy feelings. And those sort of heavy feelings of I'm not good enough that can be sat in that subconscious, or I'm a perfectionist. Well, why are you a perfectionist? Is it because your parents told you weren't good enough, or school told you weren't good enough? What happens at the end? Do we have feelings of I am not good enough? I'm not lovable, which means, does that mean that you're corresponding, that I can't be? Now, what this actually means is that in subtle ways, that energy signature, that correspondence that you're having with the unified field, which I'll explain in a moment, is actually saying that I am not good enough to hold on to a job, or good enough to get a good enough relationship, or have a book published. Even if sometimes you get that relationship, or you get some money, or you get a good deal, can you hold on to it? And so that's what the reflection there is. But the flip side is you turn that into, and we clear out all of that rubbish. And we're going to do a really strong release today, because we don't need to look at all the stories in our subconscious. We don't need to look at every story, but we do need to understand the meanings that we've attached. And so the practice today is going to allow us to really get rid of those stories and make sure that we know what we're actually sending out into that field. Before I go on, I just want to check in that everyone's still with me. So any questions? No. Brilliant. Okay. Also, before I move on, and I'm going to talk quickly about the law of mentalism, the as above, so below, which is really hopefully going to also help us understand how that intuition is channeling and coming in, and how we're stopping it again. But before we do that, just take a moment and have a look at the fab of your own. With that destination that you have planned, whatever that is, what are the things, and I'm talking about the negative things at the moment, and you might have some positives, the feelings that you've got towards it? What are the feelings that you feel might be holding you back? The second part of that is, given that, do you have a action or behavior that you're doing on a regular basis because of that? I've had to put my phone away out the room so I don't surf, and I don't keep checking Instagram, and don't keep checking in with people to go, And then we need to get even deeper. So to the beliefs. And we can get to many different layers here, but what do you think your belief is around that? Why do you think you're acting like that? And here's the really tricky one. Now you've got that first belief level. Can you go a bit deeper? And can you say, what's deeper than that? So I'll let you think about that. You can take that away a little bit more. But those are the questions that would really help us to understand, what is it we're corresponding? What are we communicating? Because that's the stuff under, I got there eventually, under that deck, under all of that. Okay, so I'm going to talk to the law of mentalism next. And I'm just going to do this quickly because this is a really hard one to make short, because I would normally cover this in a 2-hour over 2 classes. So that would be 4 hours over this topic. So you'll have to excuse me I'm going to get to the guts of this really quickly. But what this is really saying is, as above, so below. So what's above? Above is this idea that there is only one mind. And that's what the law of, well, there's 2 parts to the law of mentalism, but I'm going to talk to one part, which is basically saying there is no separation. As above, so below means that we are all one. So there might be the infinite above, the infinite intelligence of the universe, the source, the God. But guess what? There is only one mind. And within that one mind, we also exist. Now, to help us understand that a little bit more, because it is a little bit lofty, this term, is I often say, when a sunbeam comes out from the sun, does it stop being the sun, or is it still part of the sun? Greg Braden, who's a researcher, New York Times bestseller, and he's written The Divine Matrix, talks about a unified field. And he often talks about a holographic image. So stop me if this doesn't make any sense, because the first time I heard it, I was a bit like, what? Say that again. But if we can think about Star Wars and that Princess Leia and that holograph that she sends out. Now, if we broke up that holographic image, all those tiny little parts are still part of that one image. They're still combined to make a whole. And so what that means is, it's like the ocean in one drop is the one drop is the whole ocean. It's everything is still one. There is no separation. And when we look at what this law of mentalism is actually saying, it's saying, if there's one mind and there's only one person here, we are part of that mind. And so we are actually the infinite. And so we can become co-creative partners with that one mind. But there's a couple of different things here that if we are to be that mind, we need to have an element of trust within not just that one mind, but mostly within ourselves. Can we think that we are that powerful, that we are that whole? Now, there is another side of this that actually says, if there's just one mind and there's one God, why is there all this suffering in the world? Why is Gaza and Israeli Hamas going crazy at the moment? And the answer that they would give us is, if we reside in this benevolent universe and yet all this is happening, why? Because there is still the spiritual paradox. Because actually, although we are the holographic projection of that one mind, of the infinite, we can create our own reality. We can create what we see fit to create. We still have willpower. We still have our own mind. So we don't necessarily have to, or if we don't, you believe in that infinite mind, or we go astray with fear, our conscious and subconscious mind will fill it with whatever it wants to. And that's what gets projected outwards. That's what also stops our intuition from falling fully with our higher power and our higher selves. And so that's why we have to, again, look at what is in that subconscious and what is in that conscious mind. And they are all made up of things that have happened to us in the past, whether they were helpful or not, whether they were conditional or not. But we also have within us, our brains are primed for negativity. They're primed for fear. They're primed for us to, we have a 9-to-1 negativity bias. For all, I know 3-to-1, if someone says something good to you, you need, or if someone says something good to you, you won't take that on. It's almost like we have to take 3 good things to you for you to negate that one thing that was really negative, because our minds get stuck there. I want to just share, I'm going to share my screen again. Sorry. But a quote from psychologist who talks about the subconscious and conscious mind. Let me just share this, just to sort of help us understand the difference between the two. So our mind is full of, we've got 2 aspects of it. We've got the conscious mind, and then we've got the subconscious mind. And I always like to kind of make sure that everyone understands that they're 2 different things, but they do connect. So Venice Bloodworth, in his book, talks very much about every thought that enters the conscious mind is subjected to our reasoning power. That reasoning power, if it accepts an idea or thought as true, it's then carried forward to our subconscious mind to act on it, which is great. Now, the second part of that is that if it accepts it, and our conscious mind is really, let me just talk to that for a moment, is our personality. Do we like sushi? Do we like chocolate? It's all the things that's formed over time. Our subconscious brain, however, is just an amalgamation of everything that's happened. But the marvelous face. Okay, so I haven't quite finished that quote, so I'm just going to read the quote for you, because I've just suddenly realized that I only did half of that. So the thing is with our subconscious mind is, one, it's under the deck, and it runs 90 to 95% of what's going on in our minds. So then Bloodworthy offers that the subconscious mind is the marvelous face of our mind that brings things into existence by the sheer power of thought. So everything is of the mind. Thank you. So everything is of the mind. So if everything is of the mind and we're projecting that into the world, we need to be aware of what's in that subconscious mind. Because again, going back to the law of correspondence, it's communicating. And that's why we need to take responsibility for what is in that below the deck, what is in our ultimate fears, because that's what it will correspond. That's what will also block our intuition, because if it's not full of great things, if our fab is not fab, it's actually saying, 1, I'm not worthy. 2, I don't trust myself. And that means, do you trust God? Which means the channel of communication is being blocked. And so that, but we're projecting all sorts of, chaos and fear and all those sort of things into the world. And so that's why we need to be really conscious of that. And it takes a long time. And often what happens with fear, and I'm going to talk to fear in a moment, is when things are not investigated, they just sit there. When we do look at our fear, we think we've gone far, but once we've dealt with one fear, it unravels like an onion, and there's another fear, and then there's another fear, and there's another fear. And often what we're trying to do is actually go, forget about all of that. How do I get to the deepest fear and just release it? So we don't need to get stuck in the story, but we do need to understand how it's playing out for us with that fab, with those oars. Are they in sync to make sure you're going to hit that destination? Or are they out of sync? And is it a good fab or a bad fab? So that's really why. And so, just to recap on that, what we're really saying is, as within, what have you got? Will happen outside. As above, the one mind, are you projecting the one mind, or are you projecting something else? Do you have trust within yourself and self-worth, that's self-esteem, but also then a spiritual self-esteem? Do you trust in God? And then as above, do you actually know how powerful you are if you cleared out your fears? Because once you've cleared that out, you are unlimited. And we just have to remember that. And that's why we do look at our fears, to actually help release all of that, to get us out of that. So when I say look at our fears, we are making note of them. We're feeling the fears often. We're not bypassing those fears. If we need to cry, we cry. But we also understand that, are they really there to make us suffer, or are they there for something else? And I'm going to talk to fear now, and I'm hopefully by the end of this help us also have a slightly different relationship with what fears are trying to actually tell us. But I'm just going to stop there just to see if there's any questions, clarifications. No, brilliant. Okay. So fear, okay, it can feel really contracted. And there's a difference here. And again, I could talk a whole hour over this, but I'm going to really make it short to say that fear has two components: psychological fear, about what's in our brain. We anticipate stuff. Is it going to go wrong? Oh my God, all of those things. And there's a physiological fear. And the physiological fear was really there to go, the tiger's coming, run. That fear is fine. We are in mortal danger sometimes. There was a crazy dog in the park today as I was walking. I ran. I knew that I was in mortal fear. And actually my intuition kind of went, oh, it looks a bit odd. And I kind of grabbed my dog and we both legged it. That was good fear. That was me getting out. And actually, all fear is actually quite good, because I'm going to revert back to a beautiful story about, some of you may have heard of him, some may not, of Ganesha, who is a Hindu god. Now, Hindus pray to Ganesha to remove obstacles. Again, the universe and God's like this cosmic joker, because it's actually Ganesha who puts those obstacles there, who makes us fear it. Why does he put them there? So we evolve. So, it's, why do we have all these obstacles that then we then fear? Because actually, chaos, gods probably want us to get stronger and bigger. And the other irony is, Ganesha, if you know who he is, he's an elephant-headed god. So ultimately, elephants don't like mice. And so what is his vehicle of choice that he actually goes around the cosmos on? It's a chariot made of mice or rats in some stories, but essentially he's riding his fear. And that's the point, is that these fears are there to really help us evolve. What is it in this that we need to look at and help us evolve? What in this situation, if I stopped and really asked, is this true? Is this really here as an obstacle? Why is this so fearful? How can I get curious enough and creative enough to actually turn this into a step of my evolution? And if we got rid of that fear, we could also, or not get rid of the fear, but befriend the fear. We'd loosen the grip of that contraction, that heaviness, that actually stops us again from tapping into that intuition, which will get blocked when fear feels concretized. And again, I could talk to this for like an hour, and I'm going to just say it in a sentence, so it may not land, so excuse me. But when we see fear, it's also a messenger to tell us that we've actually have dropped out of our intuition. Because when we are not in fear, our intuition will always land. So fear is kind of a messenger to that. Now, I could talk a lot about that, but I'm just going to leave it at that sort of clanger because I really want to unpack what I mean there. But I'm just going to leave that little point. But we really do need to go and meet our subconscious fears that are knotting us, to allow us to unknot that and allow us to be that unlimited and actually evolve at the same time. I wrote an article this week because I really felt like I was stuck in fear and I was in collapse. And it wasn't until I actually got up and really shook my energy. And there's things that we can do from a somatic perspective to allow our nervous system to ease. And I really want to state that our body and shaking our nervous system and getting it out of collapse to more of an invigorated, okay, I can do this now, getting curious. That really helps us come out of fear. The exercise we're going to do today is a little bit more in the face of fear. We're going to see that. But I just wanted to offer that we need to also use somatic tools, which we'll do a tiny bit of today. But again, I haven't, I'm happy to share with that at another point. So the point is that the law of correspondence basically brings us back to this inevitable truth that actually we are divine beings. We are spirit. You know, it's that adage of, and you may have heard this, we are just spirits having a human existence. So we suffer when we believe that we are limited and we are not then in our true infinite nature. So we're not corresponding or communicating with our highest nature. And all that's trying to happen is that we're trying to be this communication with itself. Our soul is trying to communicate with itself. And when we don't do that, we get stuck in this fear. What do I want to say here? Okay, so what I also wanted to offer here as a little break from that was just looking at our shadow nature. Again, a tiny bit of reflection about how could this be playing out. And I want to offer something that was really helpful to me when I was looking at how else could the fear be playing out. And that's by 4 shadow archetypes written and talked about by Caroline Myss. And what's interesting is, I think at various points in my life, when I looked at the 4 shadows, there's been different shadows that have appeared at different points. So it's always an exercise I like to come back to. And what these shadows actually look like are they're rooted in the deep beliefs that we have within ourselves. So I'm going to say the 4, and I'm going to say what they are and what they could look like. What I'd like you to do, just as a reflecting and a noticing for yourself, is when I go through them, just kind of out of 10, rate how you think they're showing up, or whether they're with you dominantly at this point. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the child. So if the child is playing really strongly for you at the moment, rate it as 10. If it's not, rate it as 1. It's not that much of a problem. So the 4 are the child, the victim, the saboteur, the prostitute. So I'll start from the top, the child. The child is very much where we feel powerless. We're in that collapse. We're submissive. We feel like we've got no power. And that could really take your energy away. It could take your confidence away. Your self-esteem is probably at an all-time low. The victim is that victim of, it always happens to me. It's not fair. You know, I never get the promotion, or they give me all the work all the time. I can't win. It's that kind of, why me? It's always me. I've been here a couple of times this last couple of months. So the saboteur has been an old friend, but I think I'm there with this one. But it is, you know, the saboteur comes along, and in the old legends of the Greek world, it's like the sirens in the water who want to lure you off to go and do something else so you don't get to your destination. The saboteur might look like you going surfing on the net, or binge watching TV and not doing what you need to, looking at Instagram, you know, doing other things apart from the things that you need to. It could also look like eating, drinking alcohol, numbing, buying things, gratification. Fourthly, the prostitute. So the prostitute is you're in a relationship which you know isn't serving your highest good, but you're there anyway. It could be paying well, or you just feel safe and you don't feel like you can get out of that relationship, but it goes against your integrity and your values. So again, just reflecting on that with no judgment. Please don't add judgment onto here. You're not bad because of it. These are so human and they're parts of us. But it's really just understanding, you know, am I available for these? And again, there are practices that we can go deeper to look at that, to actually integrate them and learn what they want to tell us. Because each one of these, just like our fear, is a messenger to help us evolve. And help us to also go, just like, you know, kids at the back of the car who just want your attention. Often we need to look at what it is they want to tell us and what's deeper than that. So any questions on that? Now, with that, part, there's a big part of releasing fear, but there's also a big part of forgiveness. And the forgiveness part and the radical acceptance part is a really big part of all of this law of correspondence. And so whatever happens, whenever we reflect on ourselves, please be gentle with yourself. And please also allow yourself the grace to go, you might have done something in the past. Maybe it's you yesterday. It's okay. We don't leave them there. We integrate them into us. So I offer, and I'll offer this at the end, but the Ho'oponopono prayer of forgiveness, of looking back at you and first, and actually saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Because what we don't want to do is leave a part of us behind, a part that gets left, because that's the part that will turn into a shadow for us. And so there's a really big practice and a beautiful practice that we actually allow our child, our inner child, to heal. And that is part of that practice. But we can also use that practice for people that are challenging us at the moment, people that we might not like. And again, there's information, there's intel about our nature. What is it within us that has been activated? Because every person in this world is here as a messenger for us to evolve. And so let's get curious. And again, we can use that forgiveness practice as part of that. And it's a beautiful class. And I think that's probably a 2-hour class in its own right, which I think I will try to do at some point, because it's so liberating for ourselves. It's liberating for ourselves to feel more at ease, because whenever and it's that lovely adage of whenever we are angry at anyone else, it's like drinking poison every day, hoping the other person is going to get ill. And of course, the only person that gets ill is us. And then we block our intuition and our flow because we're the one in contraction and we're the one feeling heavy. Okay, so unless there's any questions, I'm going to go to this practice of fear releasing. Now, the subconscious can quite easily release everything. It's like that ship or the vessel where they just pull something and everything comes out the back. It's like pulling all the rubbish out. And for some people it happens quickly, and for some people we need to go through the layers, and it's all good. And we are just where we are, and there is no right, there's no wrong. But if you're up for it, in the full course, when we go through all of the steps in the sort of full program, the exercise I'm going to do with you is an 11-minute exercise. But I'm not going to let you do 11 minutes today. I'm going to help invite you. And again, it's an invitation to do 6 minutes. And the 6 minutes is putting ourselves into a state where we're allowing our subconscious really just to drop that. And it's a pranayama, which means prana is life force, yama is liberation. And we're putting our bodies into a situation, and it looks like this. So we've got our pinky and ring finger together, and we're going to do that. I'm just going to stand there. You can sit or you can stand. First time I did it standing, because and because the teacher I was with when we did it was like, no, you're standing, you're doing this for 11 minutes and don't drop your arms. So the invitation is take it there, or sit down and do it there, but try to keep your arms up. And what we're really doing is we're building that self-esteem. We're building a fire within us. We're building the trust within ourselves that we can do this and we are the channel. And as we do that and we feel the sweat of it, we're also releasing the rubbish. So think about the things that you want to release. Think about them and just let them float out and go while we're concentrating on that. So we're going to do the fingers like that. And then what we're going to do with our breath is we inhale through the nose, inhale through the mouth, through closed teeth. And then I'm going to just speak this before I try to show you. We inhale through closed teeth, and then we exhale through the nose. So it goes. To make this really powerful, like I said, bring up what you think you want to release. What are the fears? As you're breathing out, let them clear out. Okay. So you might just want to have a practice. So we're going. Breathing in through the mouth, out through the nose. Okay. Any questions? Going to put some music on and I will time it so it is only 6. Yeah, if you like to close the camera, that's fine. That's all good. And we'll just play the music. I'm going to put the... So again, I'm going to stand to do this. So take a shake, take your position. And the timer has started. So just ease yourself. Breathing in through the mouth. You can close your eyes. You are so safe to be here. Hear yourself audibly with every exhale through the nose. Let go of anything that no longer serves you. Every fear that has dogged you. You do not need this. Anything that is arising now is ready to be released. We're doing really well. You've already gone by 2 minutes. In from the teeth, out through the mouth, nose. You're safe to let arise whatever arises. Remembering as we do this, you're releasing everything and you're returning to your power, your whole true nature. You're doing so well. You only have 1 minute left. I know the arms are tiring, but keep going. You're nearly there. Let that fire build. And just let your arms now slowly come down and keep breathing. Maybe just returning now to in breath in through the nose, out through the mouth with an audible out. In, let it go out. In, out. In and out. Well done. And just give your arms a shake. Well done. And so, although that might not feel like it, you've really released a lot of energy. You've really released a lot of that. And so, really, the invitation is just let out now what needs to come out, taking on some water. And just letting yourself just be in the being and just whatever comes up. So we're quite close to the end of this session. And if whatever comes up, just take a piece of paper, start journaling and just write about what you're noticing, whether there's fears or whether there's patterns that you want to release, and whether there's what is deeper than that. And so hopefully today just helped us understand, or just opened the invitation to start thinking about how we might be corresponding with all our feelings, our actions and beliefs and our energy, and how they're projecting our reality on the outside. And so what we see might be just from a projection from our internal world. So can we take responsibility? Because on the other side of that, we can create great things, and we can create and pull in beautiful things if we have some self-esteem and worth and we trust. And that's also going to allow our intuition and our flow to really, really kick in and really start playing at that deep end. So if you have any questions, please just let me know. I do offer those one-to-one sessions where we really do a big deep dive into that subconscious and really help us release. This is part of a bigger program, as I said, which we'll be launching hopefully towards the end of the year, or maybe next year. I'll keep you all informed. But that is a potentially 6 to 8 week course, but that really helps us dive in every single step of the way to open our intuition and really awaken ourselves. So has anyone got any questions or reflections that they'd like to share, or what was one of the things that they felt might just help them tune into themselves a little bit more, maybe their intuition? That's all good. So find me on awakeningaflow.com or just email me. Thank you so much. I'm going to send this recording out so you can go over some things in your own time, do that practice again if you really want to, and try it for 11 minutes, which I have to admit, when I did it for 11 minutes, I think I was just crying with all of the fear, but that was part of also the 8 weeks. So by the time I got to this session, I was already releasing a lot. So this was just a taster. So I'm really grateful for allowing me to serve you and share my passion. So thank you so much. And I shall talk to you all very soon if no one else has got anything else to add.